In 3 o'clock in the morning, in a dark, smoke-filled club in Hamburg, for young men were playing their 8th hour in a row. They were on the verge of total physical collapse, paid barely enough to survive, with their fingers bleeding on the strings. Nobody in that room could have ever dreamed that these boys would become the biggest music empire in human history. But the price of that success was haunting. Most people think that the rise of the Beatles was a perfectly oiled machine. But the truth is that their greatest revolution was born out of absolute chaos, deceptions, and a hidden weakness that eventually turned their empire into a hell they desperately wanted to escape. How did the boys from working-class Liverpool manage to cheat the system, and what exactly drove them to hate each other at the absolute peak of their fame? It all started with a teenager with an untamable ego, John Lennon. He founded a school band and was soon joined by Paul McCartney and George Harrison. They had only one clear goal. They wanted to play music and escape the harsh reality of poor Liverpool at any cost. But they had a huge flaw: they lacked structure. Lennon pushed his art school friend, Stuart Sutcliffe, into the band to play bass, even though the man knew almost nothing about playing. They were a band with no permanent drummer, a faking bass player, and zero discipline. They were doomed to fail. The turning point came when they found drummer Pete Best and landed a residency in Hamburg. But it wasn't glamour. It was a brutal school of endurance. They played for hours without stopping, developing a wild stage presence that would later shock the world. When Ringo Starr finally joined on drums, the puzzle was complete. Beatlemania was born. They conquered the globe. They wrote the rules of modern music production. They became gods. But then, at the very top, the wall of conflict hit them with full force. When they made the movie Magical Mystery Tour on their own in 1967, they faced a public slap and heavy criticism. For the first time, the world saw their Achilles heel. An internal war of egos began inside the band. Lennon woke up politically, introducing heavy tension. During the recording of the famous White Album, their creative cohesion shattered. While the cameras were filming material for Let It Be, absolute mental breakdown ruled inside the studio. They were at the end of their ropes. They no longer wanted to talk to each other, let alone create together. Tremendous ambition and their own record label, Apple, became a golden cage that suffocated them. In a pure irony of fate, right before the very end, they pulled themselves together and recorded Abbey Road, showing the world that they were still the most vibrant creative team on the planet. But the magic was spent. In 1970, the Let It Be album was released with an astronomically high price tag, and the career of the four men who changed the course of history ended with a heavy taste of bitterness. The four friends who survived Hamburg together ended up as strangers who were no longer interested to work with one another. The empire won, but the band was dead.